He joked, "You'd make a great bride," not knowing she was his CEO. The next morning changed everything. From an awkward moment to a life-changing opportunity, this story proves authenticity wins. Watch till the end to see how one simple joke turned into success. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more inspiring stories. The grand ballroom in downtown Chicago shimmered under crystal chandeliers, filled with influential executives, investors, and industry leaders dressed in designer suits and elegant gowns. Ethan Cole stepped inside with quiet sense of determination, though he couldn't ignore the subtle feeling that he didn't quite belong among such powerful figures. As a mid-level architect, he was more accustomed to blueprints and construction sites than champagne conversations and million-dollar deals. Still, tonight mattered. This charity gala wasn't just about donations, it was about opportunity, visibility, and perhaps a chance to secure his firm's future projects in a highly competitive market environment. Ethan adjusted his modest suit, one he had carefully chosen for the occasion, despite its simplicity, compared to the luxury brands around him. He reminded himself that confidence didn't come from labels, but from character. As he walked further into the room, he observed the subtle hierarchies forming, people gravitating toward wealth, influence, and familiarity. Conversations buzzed with corporate jargon, strategic alliances, and quiet competition. Taking a deep breath, Ethan picked up a glass of sparkling water and began introducing himself to a few attendees, hoping to make genuine connections rather than forced impressions that rarely lasted beyond events like this. After a few polite exchanges, Ethan stepped out onto the balcony for a moment of calm. The Chicago skyline stretched before him, glowing against the night sky, offering a brief escape from the intensity inside. It was there he noticed her, a woman standing gracefully near the railing, her posture relaxed yet confident. She didn't seem consumed by the crowd, as energy, and that alone caught his attention. Gathering his courage, Ethan approached her with a friendly smile, not knowing that this simple decision would soon become the most defining interaction of his evening. She turned toward him, her expression warm and approachable, which immediately eased Ethan's nerves. They began talking casually, starting with the view and the weather, gradually moving into deeper topics without effort. Her voice carried a calm confidence, yet there was an authenticity that felt rare in such an environment. Ethan found himself speaking more freely than he expected, sharing small details about his work and Kay, his passion for architecture, and even glimpses of his life as a single father, raising a young daughter who meant everything to him in this unpredictable world. As the conversation flowed, Ethan's natural humor surfaced, breaking through the formality of the evening. He made a lighthearted remark, smiling as he said, "You'd make a great bride." It wasn't meant to impress, it was simply his honest, playful observation. For a brief moment there was silence, not awkward but thoughtful. Then she smiled, her eyes reflecting both amusement and depth, and replied, "I would need a groom for that." The response was effortless, balanced perfectly between wit and grace, leaving Ethan genuinely entertained and slightly intrigued. Ethan laughed softly, appreciating her quick response, assuming she was just another guest enjoying a rare break from the formal setting. There was no sense of superiority in her tone, no indication that she held any special status beyond the elegance she naturally carried. That simplicity made the conversation feel real. They continued talking, moving beyond surface level topics into discussions about responsibility, personal growth, and the challenges of maintaining balance between professional ambitions and personal commitments in an increasingly demanding world. Ethan spoke openly about his daughter, describing how she had reshaped his priorities and given his life a sense of purpose beyond career success. He shared stories of late nights helping with homework, early mornings preparing breakfast, and the quiet pride he felt watching her grow stronger each day. The woman listened attentively, her expressions reflecting genuine interest rather than polite obligation. It was clear she valued authenticity, something Ethan rarely experienced in professional settings where conversations often felt transactional and calculated. In return, she shared subtle insights about leadership, responsibility, and the weight of expectations, though she never mentioned her position or authority. Her words carried experience, hinting at challenges far greater than she revealed directly. Ethan noticed the depth in her perspective, but chose not to question it, respecting the natural flow of their interaction. For him, it was refreshing to speak with someone who didn't measure conversations by status or benefit, but by sincerity and connection, something increasingly rare in environments driven by ambition. The city lights flickered below as time passed, almost unnoticed. Inside, the gala continued with speeches, applause, and strategic networking, but out on the balcony, a different kind of exchange unfolded, one rooted in honesty and mutual respect. Ethan didn't feel the need to impress, and she didn't feel the need to assert authority. For a brief moment, both stepped outside their usual roles, existing simply as two individuals sharing perspectives, laughter, and an unexpected sense of comfort in a world that often demanded masks. Ethan eventually glanced at his watch, realizing how much time had passed. He felt a sense of ease he hadn't expected when he first arrived. As they prepared to return inside, he thanked her for the conversation, unaware of how significant it truly was. She nodded with a gentle smile, her expression carrying a quiet appreciation. In that moment, she wasn't seen as a CEO, a leader, or a figure of influence, but as a person. And perhaps for her, that was the most valuable experience of the entire evening. What Ethan didn't know as he walked back into the crowded ballroom was that the woman he had just spoken to was Olivia Grant, the powerful CEO behind the entire event. Throughout the night, she had been approached with admiration, respect, and calculated politeness, but never with the simplicity Ethan had shown. For the first time that evening, she wasn't addressed as a title or a position. She was simply Olivia, and in that rare moment of genuine connection, something quietly meaningful had begun to take shape beneath the surface. The next morning, Ethan Cole stepped into the sleek glass building of his firm, still carrying fragments of last night's unexpected conversation. The memory of the elegant woman on the balcony lingered in his mind, her calm presence and thoughtful words leaving a quiet impression. But as he approached the boardroom, that calm quickly faded. The door was already open, and inside, a group of senior executives sat in silence. At the head of the table stood the same woman, Olivia, now radiating authority and control. Ethan froze mid-step, his breath catching as reality settled in around him. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. The warmth and ease from the night before clashed sharply with the formal, high-stakes environment of the boardroom. Olivia Grant was no longer just a kind stranger sharing conversation under city lights. She was the CEO. The CEO reviewing a major architectural proposal that Ethan had spent months developing. His project. The realization hit him all at once, sending a wave of unease through his chest. Every word he had casually spoken the previous evening echoed in his mind, now carrying a weight he hadn't anticipated. Ethan quietly took his seat, trying to compose himself as the meeting continued. Olivia's presence commanded attention without effort. Her tone was precise, her observations sharp, and her expectations unmistakably high. She moved through the presentation with clarity, asking direct questions and offering critical insights that revealed her deep understanding of the project. Ethan admired her professionalism. Even as his nerves tightened, he avoided meeting her gaze, unsure if she recognized him in this entirely different context, or if she had already chosen to ignore their brief encounter. When their eyes finally met, it lasted only a second, but it was enough. There was no sign of discomfort or judgment in her. Only calm recognition. Olivia maintained her composure, continuing the meeting as though nothing unusual had occurred. That professionalism both reassured and unsettled Ethan. He wasn't sure what to expect next. Would she bring up their conversation? Would she question his conduct, or would she simply evaluate him based on his work alone? The uncertainty lingered heavily as the meeting progressed toward its conclusion. As discussions wrapped up, Olivia provided final feedback on the project. Her words were balanced, highlighting both strengths and areas requiring improvement. She spoke with authority, but there was fairness in her evaluation that Ethan couldn't ignore. When the meeting ended, people began to gather their files and leave, conversations resuming in quieter tones. Just as Ethan stood to exit, Olivia's voice stopped him. "Mr. Cole, could you stay for a moment?" The room fell briefly silent before everyone else stepped out, leaving the two of them alone. Ethan's mind raced as the door closed behind the last executive. He stood there, unsure whether to sit or remain standing, his thoughts tangled with anticipation. He prepared himself for criticism, perhaps even a formal reprimand for his casual behavior the night before. In his mind, he replayed the moment on the balcony, his joke echoing louder than it had any right to. He braced himself, reminding himself to remain respectful and professional, regardless of what came next. This was his career on the line, and he knew it. Olivia walked toward the window, pausing for a moment before turning back to face him. The intensity of the boardroom softened slightly, replaced by a more human expression. She studied him briefly, as if measuring something beyond his role or title. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It wasn't the commanding smile of a CEO addressing a team. It was the same calm, genuine smile from the balcony. "You're the first person in a long time who spoke to me without knowing who I was," she said, her voice carrying quiet sincerity rather than authority. Ethan blinked, caught off guard by her words. The tension he had built within himself began to loosen, replaced by a cautious sense of relief. He didn't know how to respond at first. He had expected critique, not appreciation. Olivia continued, explaining that most people approached her with calculated intentions, carefully choosing their words based on her position. But the night before, Ethan had spoken freely, without expectation, without strategy. That honesty, she said, was something she rarely encountered in environments driven by ambition and appearances. Their conversation shifted naturally, moving back to the project. Olivia asked him about his design choices, encouraging him to explain his vision in detail. This time, Ethan spoke with confidence, no longer weighed down by uncertainty.